Welcome to the Trend or Truth podcast, where we discuss the trends and cultural curiosities that impact the Christian walk and the truth of God's Word that can help us walk strong in the faith with kindness and compassion towards others. Thank you for joining us on today's episode. Now, here's the AMP Station Director and host of the Trend or Truth podcast, Zorn.
Hey everybody, this is Zorn with the AMP Station. We're here to do a little podcast. Last week we did a panel over over discipline. I've been doing that all week. And I've got a couple of guys here that were on the panel. I got my eldest son-in-law, Chris Nakashima.
What's going on?
And then, of course, we've got cross-country runner and newly baptized into Christ, Isac Conder.
Hey, guys.
So I really appreciated you guys doing the panel and everything. I thought it went really, really well. I was proud of you guys. I mean, I just wanted to make sure and let you guys know that for sure. How'd you guys feel like it went?
It was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was a little outside my comfort zone for sure, but it was definitely a good time once we got through it. And once we were into it, it was we were rolling, so it was good.
Yeah, the fear is a lot more than the actuality when you get up there, what it's like and stuff. So I get that. But up there, we kind of define discipline. Do you guys have anything about like what you can kind of remember that we talked about, what the meaning of discipline is?
Yeah, I think what I said back on Sunday was doing the things that you know you need to do but don't want to do, and then not doing those things that you know you shouldn't do but want to do.
Trying to refrain from those things as well. Yeah, I know for me, I always look at discipline as, we're doing something now. We're kind of sacrificing now for something that we know is going to come later.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Isaac, you got any thoughts on it at all?
I mean, I would just say discipline's like being consistent towards your goals and everything. Just over longevity too. That's a big thing, just over time. I like that. Discipline really isn't a hit and quit kind of deal. Mm-hmm. It's not a quick hit type thing.
Yeah.
We do kind of have to stay with it. That's a good point.
Like discipline's only discipline if there's longevity in it. That's a really good point.
I think it's a great point too for kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I mean, you guys kind of went over a wide variety of things. I really enjoyed it because you hit on athletics and you hit on work a little bit and what we got to do for school and things like that. I wanted to spend a little bit more time today talking about the spiritual disciplines. And I'm not talking about the overly spiritual things, but the things like prayer, like Bible reading, like finding good godly community, maybe even church attendance, which is tough for athletes and employees and things like that. What are some of the things that you have that might be considered a spiritual discipline that you've maybe newly implemented or have been doing it for a while? Or maybe, for me, my prayer life is kind of hit or miss. I hate to say that, but I know I need to do it. But I still, like you said, I don't do it as much as I know I ought to. And it's something that I want to grow in. What about for you guys?
The one thing that I had mentioned, the discipline that like ended up growing more than I thought it was going to, was the listening to worship music. When we start, like the first time I get in the car, if I turn the car on for the first time that day, I'm listening to worship music no matter how far I go. So if it's just at the gas station for 5 minutes, after that I can turn a podcast on, or after that I can listen to country music, or after that I can do whatever. But the first time I get in the car every day, I'm listening to worship music. And then, usually it starts to bleed into second drive or the third drive, or you get back in the car and the phone automatically connects to your car, and it just like, now I'm 10 miles down the road again, and I'm like, well, I've been listening to worship this whole time. And so it starts with a little bit of discipline. Just get in the car, even if you got a good song on that you wanted to listen to last night that you left it on, and then you got in it, connected and started playing, like, no, I'm cutting it off and I'm going worship music to start. Just that little act of discipline at the beginning ends up bleeding into the rest of your day. And so it's just, that's where I've been, just on a very basic spiritual level with discipline, just incorporating worship music into what I do, and then, having it expand into everything else. I
don't think we had the building when we did this, but because Mars was around, you remember Mars, you remember we did the challenge where, we were going to try to listen to worship music in every single thing that we did for like a week or something. Maybe it was a month. I feel like it was at least a week.
Yeah, probably a week.
And remember, she was like talking about how like when you work out, you kind of want a pump me up song. You don't want something. But there's some good Christian songs that are kind of bangers and kind of can get you fired up. And I remember how it impacted her. She was like, "Man, it's kind of changing my outlook in the day to day."
Hey, we started our workout today with Creed. We were singing "Take Me Higher" today, just as a joke. Right. But I watched an interview on him, and I think he's the lead singer or whoever's doing their writing for their songs.
Scott Stapp, I think, is his name.
They were asking him like, "Dude, how did you guys end up like writing Christian music?" And he's like, "I had to. It was the only thing I could come up with." And then those guys all signed up for a rock and roll band, like doing all the things that rock and roll bands do. And they were kind of upset when we got into it, but I don't know how much they ever bought in, but they put out like a lot of music that was undercover Christian that now people look back and are like, man, listen to the words. Take me higher to the place where blind men see, take me higher to the place of golden streets. I was like, I've never heard those lines in a Christian sense until I listened to the song after I found out they were quote unquote a Christian band. But it was like, you put that in the gym. We did it today, and it worked.
Yeah, that's crazy. I listened to those songs back in the day and didn't realize that that's what they even said. I'm sure I was singing along with them, but didn't really know.
Yeah.
So, what about some spiritual disciplines for you? Are there anything that you've been kind of fired up on, or?
I was want to say real quick, you guys need to like recommend me like songs because I don't know. Like
we can do that.
Yeah.
We can do that. I
But,
know that.
Yeah,
You may get sick of it.
yeah, maybe. But I guess for me, it's more of a kind of being in that mindset of like thinking about stuff all the time. I'm always trying to like just think. Like I'm just I'm in my car. Sometimes I don't even play music. I'm just sitting there just thinking when I'm driving. And I started having more conversations, kind of like spiritual conversations with my friends even. And I've had like multiple great conversations the past like month or two with a lot of my close friends that I didn't even know like that at one point I knew they were just completely atheist, honestly.
Yeah.
But now they're starting to kind of get into, or they're just like asking me a few things, and I'm just kind of, I don't even know a lot. I'm just kind of sharing what I do know, what I believe, and it's always good. It's always good. And I guess for me, it's kind of like just being on that spiritual mindset more often.
Being disciplined to stay in that.
Yeah, I guess the more exposure to it, but I'm always like thinking about it. That's kind of like the little thing for me, but
yeah, that's interesting because like that discipline that you show, like in your own growth, like your own ability to read the Bible or your own ability to, be in a spiritual mindset is having effect on other people. And if you weren't disciplined enough to like read the Bible or go to church or do any of these things, you wouldn't be able to have the answers to those questions for them. And then it becomes a lost opportunity, which, we don't have the burden of carrying that on our shoulders. But if we ever get the chance, it's like, I can do everything I can to help that person and lead them in the right direction. And so without the discipline of, being willing to do those on your own growth, you lack the ability to discipleship others, which I think, is a testament to how much discipline you're showing too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a great point. As you were saying that, it reminded me of the verse, and we just went through this in our athletic small group, Colossians 3:2. This is actually through 10. I'm just going to read a little portion of it, but it says to set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. And that's kind of what you're talking about, is now you're starting to think about Christian things rather than earthly things, and the Bible tells us if we do that, God will start to show in our life. And just like you said, people are starting to see Isaac different now because of the conversations that he wants to engage in and the things that he wants to talk about and discuss and so on and so forth. So I just thought it was pretty cool. When you guys said that, it made me think of that verse. So that's good stuff. Isaac, I don't want to put you on the spot, but tell us just a tiny bit about where you were 3 or 4 months ago and where you are now, and kind of what's changed that for you.
I would say the one thing that's consistent for me, always consistent for me, even the past multiple years, is like I've always trusted in God. Honestly, like when I was younger, I've always been Christian. I guess that's what I would say generally. But like I would say even a few months ago, like I guess I've always had that want to get into it, but I never really had anybody at all. I feel like pushing me. Not a single person I felt like was. I had a friend I went to church with a few times, like whenever, like winter break or summer break, like during summer a little bit, when I was off from college. But like he also like really knew the stuff, so we both were kind of just like, I don't really know what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But my mindset was even at some points were even like negative, and it's because of like more of the hypocrisy you can see in some people. That's the biggest thing. Now, granted, I'm also self-aware enough to realize, hey, that's not everybody. That's just some people.
Right.
Like, I know that too. But, like, I knew I had some people I talked to before I had really bad interactions with, and that kind of gave me, like, an outlook on things. Honestly, I didn't realize the importance of spending – we had the conversation, honestly, when we were at the restaurant. Like, I mentioned how, like, I just said God's kind of like my homie, right? And then you're just like – you got to hang out with your homies. And I'm like, yeah, you do. And that's it. Like that actually what kind of like changed it for me. I was like, yeah, you do got to like spend time with people you care about. And I wasn't doing that. I was just kind of like, it was kind of one of those, like you see him and you're like, hey, and then you walk off like, how you doing? But like, it's whatever. But then I'm like, wait, like I can't say he's like my friend or like, father, whatever, if I'm not spending time with him.
It's
Just
crazy
like
you said that, because when I got home, I told my wife, I was like, man, I may have ruined it with this guy. I said, I really want to get to know him and stuff. But he was talking about, I just look at God as my homie. And I just told him, I said, well, kind of, are we homies? And like, obviously we weren't yet. We were just hanging. We are now, right?
Yeah, of course.
but I was like, that was the point, was to be a homie, you need to be spending time together. And we've gotten to spend quite a bit of time together and stuff. And so that was my point that I wanted to get across, was like, hey, if we're going to be homies with God, we got to probably be in his word. We probably got to be talking to him. We got to be in proximity, which we know with God that means those things of prayer and Bible and community. I think it's great that you spoke about how important the community has been to you recently, especially because you had that guy, and it is important. And I think one thing that I heard you say that I would like to just express for everyone out there, this could be a discipline of ours if we think about it, is not to assume anything, not to assume the level that someone's at, good or bad, because I could tell you were a great person. I assumed that you were a Christian. If I maybe had just felt like, oh, he's fine, and not pushed a little bit to say, do you want to go deeper? Do you know that there's more to it than just having an appearance of being good? And there's some people that are really, really good, but don't know Christ at all. And that's really dangerous and scary, and so I just appreciate you giving me opportunity to spend time with you.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful now, because you're an important part of my life. I hope you know that.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to see you continue to grow. I'm really excited to see you, because I know you're going to have impact on others. How about Bible reading for you guys? How's that started, maybe early in your Christian life, and how has that progressed, and where are you at now?
Man, it's a struggle. I'll be honest, it's a struggle. I try and keep up with the daily reading. I've been through some really, really good devotional plans, and then I find myself in those ones that are super Bible heavy, like struggling. And so, a big method that we teach at school and how to teach kids is chunking. And so, like, if you can take a larger piece of reading and break it down piece by piece and look at different parts of it and chunk it into smaller sections, one, you understand more. It's going to be more digestible. The kids aren't going to get pushed away by it.
Yeah.
And then we spend time like working through a small piece, and then by the end of the class period, we've got a lot better understanding of what's going on. So I've tried to push that in my own reading. I keep telling myself, like, I got to read the whole chapter. And it's like, well, if you're not getting anything out of reading the whole chapter, like, read the first 5 verses and then, really focus on those. Or read the daily Bible verse that comes up on your phone. Like, I have mine set for 7 a.m. every morning, because that's when I try and be at my desk in my classroom, is by 7 a.m. every morning.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I sit down, I get that thing and like, okay, I'm starting my day. I'm about to start getting on the computer and start figuring out what's going on for class and all that kind of stuff. And that verse comes through and I'm like, okay, if we're going to start this day, we're going to start with this. And I read the verse. And then, if I have a chance, I'll read the whole section that it's in, the whole chapter.
Yeah, because a chapter's good, but really they're cut into sections usually, and they're titled. And if you go from one title to the next title, you can get a pretty good level of context from that. And context is what we're after.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to take a verse and spin it for something that's comfortable or what we're looking for or something like that. But when you get the context, you kind of get the real meaning out of it. So
yeah. And so my discipline of trying to stay, on task with some of that stuff is like, don't be discouraged by baby steps. Like, just because I'm not reading the whole Bible in, 365 days, getting into it at all is better than nothing, which I know isn't a great way to look at it, but you only build habits, one piece at a time.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
And so even though I feel like I've been in this journey for a while, it's just, reading in general, reading anything, not something I do a whole lot of. And so I try and mix in some other visual medias and, song that incorporates, different videos or podcasts where people talk about it. I feel like I can hear those things and listen to them a little bit better.
Haven't you been doing the Bible recap?
So I did the Bible recap for a little while there.
And that's a podcast where she goes through like a daily scripture. Yep. She goes through the Bible in a year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of like a devotional that they go through. And
it's like Bible reading with some devotional time where she just explains kind of what she read through, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the biggest thing that it helps for sure is having other people that are also like accountability partners.
Yeah.
And not so much accountability in the fact that it's like, hey, did you read today? Versus like, hey, I read about this and it told me a lot of good things. And there's the difference in leadership between, the push and the pull. It's like, if you're just pushing somebody to do it, they're not going to want to do it because, they don't see you.
Yeah.
But when you're pulling somebody up a hill, it's like, okay, they're, in it with me.
It's good.
And I try and do that for other people, but sometimes it's not as easy for myself. So Bible, long story short, Bible reading's a struggle, but a discipline I'm working on.
Well, we kind of talk all the time about some things just have to start with obedience.
Yeah.
And then gradually God starts to grow the desire in you. So what about you? Where are you at with Bible reading?
It's something I need to get, honestly, a schedule for. And I guess like kind of that use like obedience. Like what I thought about it, I keep thinking, because I haven't done it in like a week or so, is I haven't just opened my Bible and just been like, okay, let's read this.
Yeah.
But I guess what I have done is, like, for example, for this, I had conversations with a lot of people. Hey, I remember I asked like a bunch of people on my team, like, hey, what is discipline to you? And just in general,
Right.
I asked a lot of people that, and I still have been. And then I also had different conversations. And then also I listened to that one podcast that Wes really likes, the You
Bible Project?
Yeah, I listened to some of that too.
Yeah.
I really like that too. And then also Colton gave me the Christianity 101. So I've been reading like the verses for that, but I have not. I think I'm in like John right now, I think. And I'm like trying to read like the Gospels.
Yeah.
The
Gospels. Yeah.
Yeah, the Gospels. But I haven't made progress in that. It's something I need to like honestly get back into. One thing with that is like I'm gonna just make like I've been kind of honestly stressing a little bit, because I'm like, whenever I'm trying to like, it's kind of like, I'm trying to spend time doing something, like prioritize like spiritual whatever. Like I was thinking about this, the podcast, and I thought last week I was thinking about like you doing the whole thing, and that's kind of like what I spend my time doing. But I definitely like need to just like, hey, like read your Bible.
But don't you feel like, I mean, because I think this is a pretty good principle that you may have stumbled upon on accident. Don't you feel like now you can speak pretty well on discipline with people if they were to ask about biblical discipline, spiritual discipline, and things like that?
Yeah.
Because you have been so intentional with just that area. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's easy to read through all the Bible and go through all these things and not really absorb a bunch in each area. You're going to because God promises that. But when you're intentional in an area, I think then you hold on to more of that, and are able to use that. And it's crazy because then God starts putting people in your life that are going like, hey, man, I'm really struggling with reading the Bible. Let me talk to you about discipline. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. So
I found it like where you're talking about, like you kind of got ate up with just the podcast, or last week going on the panel. Like that was huge for me, and the push to like get into some of it, like reading some of the different stories about discipline, finding the scriptures, one to just look like I was prepared. But like either way, if you're doing it just to look prepared, you end up being prepared either way. And showing up. And so, it gave me kind of some direction to go, okay, I'm not just going to drop the Bible open and see what it lands on. I'm going to go, all right, I'm going to Google what are passages of discipline in the Bible? What are stories of discipline? What are verses that go with discipline? And then I was like, okay, I have some context in which I'm trying to learn something about it, versus like, okay, I need to digest the entire Bible. Where do I start? It's like, here, I'll start with discipline. And then I've been focused on discipline for 2 weeks. And then, you can listen to a message, a sermon, and be like, oh, I'm going to, look at whatever they talked about that Sunday. And then you go home and you forget about it. But when you got to get up on stage, or you got to, record a podcast, it's like, oh, I got to get going. Like I need to be on top of my stuff. And so that was kind of an external push that you hope to internalize later, all these external and internal motivation factors and stuff like that. But if you can't find an internal one, go get an external one, and it'll push you to go get something done. We
always have kind of encouraged people to write a message.
Yeah.
And people are like, I'm not giving a message. They're like, I'm not getting on stage. I'm like, that's not the purpose of it. Right? Just write one, because it does make you dig deep. It does make you, and then you also kind of start learning about what we talked about in context. Like, because forever I was bad about, here's the thought I want to convey. Where's a scripture that'll help that? And now I want scripture to be the thing that's speaking.
And then how do I build it?
And how does it apply to the life that we're living or trying to live? So this is where you can embarrass me, because I like I said, I struggle with this, and God's working with me in it though too. What about prayer? How are you guys on prayer life and stuff?
Surprisingly pretty good. I work in education, for all those that are listening that need some context. But Ryan Walters is our head of education, and a lot of pushback and feedback about his job as a leader in education, just leader for our state. But he's been pushing a lot of the Bible and a lot of time, and some of it good, some of it bad. But we've started a moment of silence every day, and I'm pretty sure it came from Ryan Walters. It's what I'm guessing, at least. But it's come down where it's mandated, where you have to do a moment of silence every day and over the announcement, it says that you can do anything silent. That includes thinking to yourself, praying. Like praying is an option that they include in the standard message, or anything that doesn't, bother somebody else in this moment of silence. And so, even without the discipline, which I feel like I've been good in prayer, every day, start a second hour, I've got, at least 45 seconds to get a quick one in. And it's kind of a different context, because usually I'm at home. Usually it's talking about my family. Usually it's talking about, people that I'm worried about, or, something going on in my life that I'm struggling with. But it kind of gives me the opportunity for 45 seconds to pray about these kids that, I spend time with. But I'm standing there and I get to the end of the day and it's like, oh yeah, I'm ready to go home, and then I go do my thing. But for 45 seconds to a minute, whatever it ends up being, I intentionally pray about the school and the kids and all the struggle we go through there. And so it's kind of an interesting way that, the environment I'm in has forced discipline. And so,
that's good.
That environment can help or hurt you. And a lot of the times it's bad, especially in, public education that seems to fight back against a lot of Christian or private education. Mm-hmm. We've incorporated this now that I find as beneficial, where some people just use it as like, all right, I get a minute break where I don't have to listen to these kids, intentionally trying to think, all right, I'm going to pray for a minute straight. Yeah. Like, let's
you got someone in your sight that maybe God can place something on your heart, a need that they have, or because I know you don't just have surface level relationship with those kids. I know you kind of dig deep. So what about you? Where are you at with it, Isaac?
I do pray every once in a while, but I don't, I guess I should more.
Well, all of this is about trying to grow and what we desire and what we know God desires for us, and so it's there's not a pass fail type deal, I'm trying to pastor people, so I should definitely be praying. I've still got it in my notes on my phone. I've got a deal that talks about the things that pastors do, and one of them is pray 2 to 3 hours a day. Like, jeez, not even close. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I also kind of have a constant prayer going on throughout the day too. You know what
That's what I was going to ask you is like, when you pray, do you find it hard to pray because you try and make it too formal, or you try and make it like some special thing that it's supposed to be? Or do you just pray? Like, my biggest breakthrough was like, I can get a 5-second prayer in, like about something, or a lot of mine's gratitude for a lot of things. It's like, one thing that's always stuck with me is like, if God took everything away today and you could only keep what you were thankful for yesterday, what would you have in your life? And I was like, oh, dang, like I wouldn't have anything, because I didn't pray for a lick for the last 6 months about being thankful for any of it. It's always like, God, I need help with my finances. God, I need help with a new truck. God, I need help with more, of this or that or whatever. And it's like, if he took everything except for what I was thankful for yesterday, I'd have nothing. And so that's why I was just curious, like, when you go to a time of prayer, is it like you've got to set it up and close the door and be, have it silent, put a candle on, like all that kind of stuff? Or is it just like...
Yeah, because we can over-spiritualize things. Yeah. And it's your homie.
Yeah, that's what my struggle was. It was too
just talk to him.
It was too formal for me for the longest time. And then I finally got to that point where it's like, hey, God, just checking in. Appreciate you. Thank you for getting me through that real quick. And then we're moving on. And it's like that thing all day. And so, I was just kind of curious to see what your thought process was on how you go into like getting into prayer and doing that sort of thing.
I mean, honestly, as you say that, I realize like, I don't like, bow my head, close my eyes, honestly, but I'm just like talking.
Yeah.
I guess I was running and I started laughing. This sounds creepy. I was laughing hysterically while it was like downpouring rain. I'm just like, yo, God, this is crazy. This is so nice. This is an awesome run. Yeah, thank you for this. Like,
that's exactly what I was going to ask. Is like, you went on a 10-mile run in the rain. You had to at one point say one prayer.
Yeah, no, I did.
Sometimes we don't count those as prayers. We're like, oh no, that's just me talking. But that's a prayer. That's what it is. Just talking with you.
And I do that. I mean, I do that all the time. Actually, I always have on it. Like, I think maybe a little bit more now, but I always have. That's one thing. Because like I said, I've always trusted in God, even when I wasn't going to church or anything like that. I read the Bible or anything. Yeah. But I was still talking to Him. Because like I always believe like God is a good God. That's how He is. So like
foundationally, you understand what God is doing.
You
just weren't in it.
I know. Yeah, I wasn't trying to learn about Him really, but I was just talking to Him. I knew He was there. Like I was like, well, might as well speak.
Which He promises that if we draw near to Him, He'll draw near to us, and that's what's happened in your life recently. Is you've had those times where you've been talking to Him, and he's like, hey, come closer. And I think that's where you're at right now.
Yeah.
You guys reminded me of this verse, 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18. This has always been one of those things where I over spiritualize this, but this is what we do when we're on those runs and we're just kind of in constant.
You don't go on no runs.
I would know it, but I was just trying to stay in the moment. But rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Just like you said, sometimes it's just a matter of, man, thank you for where you placed me. Thank you for the people that you placed in my life and things like that. So I think that's huge, because I always thought that meant that I had to stop, bow my head, and then pray and be in that moment for hours. And I might get close to an hour or two of prayer a day if I really think about the times where I'm driving down the road, so my eyes are open, my head isn't bowed, but I'm just like, man, God, you are faithful. You're doing some work. You know, I mean, how many baptisms have we had in here?
More than ever.
10, 12, something. What's not to be thankful for? I mean, you can't drive down the road after last week or the week before that or even the week before that and not be going, God, you said you'd build your church and you're building your church. Thank you for that. You know, it's just great. But I think that's what it is. And I think all of us can over spiritualize things and think, oh, we got to do this in a different way. And you said earlier, you know, that's what hypocrites do. Hey, I need you to see me praying and I need you to see me do it properly. That's what the Pharisees and the Sadducees were. They wanted to look like they were loving God properly, but they were so far away from it. It wasn't even funny, you know. And so it's really good stuff. What about community? And I'm talking about both, you know, because here at the AMP station, we believe you need to be surrounded with the right people, but there's time to be in godly community, which we consider, you know, our Sunday night services, which are at 7 now, by the way, if you're ever wanting to come, and also small groups that are intentional. You know, you're going to come and you're going to sit and you're going to talk about God and the things about Him. But then also, I want to hear a little bit about what you guys are as far as just fellowship with godly people that might be game night. There's not an intentional motive to talk about God, but you know it's godly people, so you're going to be, you know what I mean? You're going to keep, the atmosphere is going to be pure of heart and nature, and you know, there's not the transactional things that are normally happening between guys and girls and you know stuff like that. How's that? Where are you at with stuff like that? And areas you want to improve, areas you think are highly important, so you focus on that. What are some of those?
I don't really see people as like this is a Christian person, this is not. I just see people as people. Still, I mean, I don't know if I don't really know how. That's just my outlook, I guess. Everyone is like a person. Like I treat them, respect them, and doesn't matter what I think if they're, you know, Muslim or Mormon, whatever. Like I just think, I assume the good in people. Obviously, you know, their actions show that they're really like. But I would say they're like, obviously people that I notice are like, you know, Ian Busting, great guy. Like if I talk to him, I know I can have some really good conversations with him on certain things. Yeah. And like some of my other like roommates stuff, like I've had like solo, I had great conversations with him. Yeah. But sorry, what was the question?
It's just what are there? You know, you've got fellowship, which is just godly community, and you don't really have an intentional purpose of talking about God, but sometimes that ends up happening. And then we have the gatherings where we know it's going to be Sunday night. We have worship service. We know we're going to be worshiping, hear a message. Then we're also going to be Tuesday night. We have our athletic small group. You know you're going to talk about God. It's an intentional time. Just kind of see where you guys are with making that time for God and you know where you're at with that.
With other people?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm open to talk about anything with anybody at any time for the most part. If you ask me, like, I'll probably tell you. You know, you just ask the right questions, honestly. I mean, I'll talk to anyone about anything. As long as we can be, you know, respectful or if possible, obviously, but like. Which if we're Christian, we're supposed to be regardless anyway, even if they're coming at us hard or cruel, you know, so. And like, at some point, can I spread that to doing that with people I don't know and have no idea? Hopefully that'll be pretty cool. Yeah. I think I need a little more knowledge and everything, but still, like, I have great conversations with people about, like, you know, spiritual stuff all the time. Yeah. So I think that's good for me. I'm around good people who I'm able to do that with. Sure. I mean, I see you going at it really the right way. To me, you know, you're, and we can go too much. You know, we can just kind of be chasing and never pouring out. But I think that's what's important about being able and willing to talk to people that maybe aren't Christians, because why be poured into
if we're not going to pour out to other people, and we can do that, Christians, but also the people that don't know God we're supposed to be telling them about the word, telling them about him.
For me, it's kind of been in a transition period, or at least the transition's happened and I haven't really grasped it until lately, but I've gone from more of a, somebody that's taking in a lot of things from other people spiritually and, in a Christian sense, to being the provider of those situations for other people.
That's
so,
good.
An example of that is the FCA group we do on Wednesday mornings. It's like we have a group of probably 4 or 5 teachers that show up, and we end up getting 20 or 30 kids in the classroom. And this is at 7:10 in the morning before we start class at 7:40. So it's not easy to get to. It's early.
Yeah. I've already played 2 hours of pickleball, but whatever.
Yeah, for a 13-year-old, they're not getting up to go to school.
Yeah.
But, situations like that, or talking about hosting the marriage small group, that's a position of providing a situation that we can be in those things. And, retrospectively, now that I think about it, for the last, I don't know, probably 6 months to a year, we always talk about how you have to have, if you're not a YA or one of the people that are just attending to obtain something from AMP on Sunday, you're a provider. And I feel like I've lacked in that because I finally get here and I'm like, oh, all right, I can kind of relax. I'm back in a space where, things run pretty smooth. I don't have to, set up sound anymore. I'm not in that position to do a lot of these things with the dinners or, all these things we've kind of gotten to a point where it's not self-sustaining, but those that are in place kind of keep it running. Where I feel like early on it was like, okay, we got to make sure it sounds good. Addie's playing music. We're fixing something that's broken. We're getting lights set up. We're stringing, new cables. And it was always providing in that sense.
Yeah.
Where now I've transitioned to, okay, I'm providing an environment for other people that are newer to their walk or are needing a refresher or are needing some sort of knowledge from me versus me taking it in. And so when I get here, it's kind of like, I'm just going to sit on the couch and take in a message versus I feel like I've had to, provide that environment for a lot of people, which is good. Yeah. I enjoy being in it. It's kind of a new stage of life for me as I, get older, but it's still, I think, even more growth than it is just being on the receiving end of those situations. It used to be, we'd go to your house.
Yeah.
Or we'd come to AMP or we'd have, a group on the road or whatever. It was always usually you setting stuff up. Even with the small groups that we led, they were, okay, you guys are taking this group and you guys are going to Doug and Terry's. You guys are going to wherever we ended up doing the different small groups at that one year. We did it all over the place. And it was like, so I was providing the service within a structure of it was all found out for me versus now I'm setting it up on a daily basis in a classroom. I'm setting it up on a daily basis at the softball field. I'm setting it up at the house. I'm setting it up, at AMP sometimes for whatever it is.
How does that feel? Does that feel weighty or is it one of those things like, yeah, it's a weight and a responsibility coming in here and setting this up and doing everything like it would suck if it was just because, you know what I mean? But because I know I'm gonna have an awesome conversation with some awesome dudes. I know it's for the kingdom. It doesn't faze me at all. Like I'm excited to get in here, and do work where I wouldn't normally be. You know what I'm saying?
I don't always struggle with it. But if I do, I struggle with it right up until the moment it starts. And then we roll and it's good to go.
Then you're like, oh, it's all worth it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's weird because it's like sometimes with family, when you're trying to do stuff, it's like, oh, gosh, we got to go do this again. Sometimes it's harder. Versus when I do it for the kids at school that are in a public education system with very little, religious influence or none at all or even pressure the other way. It's like, I can do this all day. Like, what do you need? Let's get this set up. In that situation, you feel more like you need to be the provider for younger kids, where here it's always kind of felt peer to peer. And I'm starting to, phase out into that next level. But in a situation like at school or at softball with kids that are, 10, 12 years, 14 years younger than I am now, it's a little bit easier to be like, no, I got to go do this because they need somebody to do it. I'm going to do it for them. It's a silly thing, but like my Instagram bio is Isaiah 6:8. It says, "Here I am, send me." And that's what we put on our bag tags when we go to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Every time I think, man, I don't want to go do that. It's like, no, here you are. Go get it done. And so in certain situations, it can get weighty and feel like, man, I don't want to do this again. Like, I want somebody else to take this on so I can sit on the couch. But then once I get it done and we start, like this, it's like, no, that was all worth it. And like, you look back, you're like, what did I even stress about?
it'd be interesting in a year to come back and say, hey, how's it feel now? And then you might be where I'm at. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I'm more elevated. I'm just saying I've done it for so long. The reward, I can see the reward before. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can see the glory for God before.
But it took discipline in the early parts of that.
Yes, it took obedience.
When we talk about cleaning toilets, like you always said, I'm gonna be the first guy to clean the toilet, and then hey, somebody go clean that thing. And it wasn't exactly like that, but I'm sure there was points early on that if you didn't have discipline, out of obedience, you'd have been like, no, I'm not doing that, and then you just push yourself back a month, 2 months, 6 months, where you are where you are now because of that discipline you showed early, right?
Man, that's a good wrap up right there. I brought it all back. Yeah, full circle. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add or say, or just anything, scripture or something that comes to mind, or just how would you guys like to wrap it up?
I would just say discipline is like all up to you, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think of it like, God is a teacher, you're the student, handing back the paper, like the red pens, you grade yourself. Like, you grade yourself.
Yeah.
No one else grades it for you. You grade yourself, and obviously like he knows if you're grading it right, but like you can put 100 on there, and that could be okay. Maybe that could be like your lowest spin. You like truly believe that. That's completely fine. Obviously God knows like your true heart and everything, but like it's not, just like for example, I know I have a lot of friends that are Mormon. They go to church every single day. That just that's great, but like more isn't always better. Like especially like running, like there are guys who run 100 miles a week, right? I don't need to do that. More isn't always better. Like you got to do what you got to do. I run 45 miles a week. That's what I should be doing. That's what I need to stay at. So you just know your limits, know where you should be at. Like your relationship, you to him, not you to someone else to him. It's you to him.
Yeah,
so it's all good. It's all you to him. So
you're like the analogy king. Like I'm just going to start putting messages together and say, now give me an analogy for this.
That's one thing I always like think of, like metaphors or something, because that's that's just how my brain works. Yeah,
like
whatever makes sense
in it. You know what I mean? Because some of the ones the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like unbelievable. And I've never heard them. It's not like they come from, a lot of the stuff I'm using is like, I've heard it, and so, but that's a great one right there with the red ink and he handing it back to you, and just like, gentle correction, and like, hey, work on this, and gives you the area. So that's great, man. What about you? Got anything else to end up with?
Man, last thing I'll say is, don't believe a word I said. Go find it for yourself, right? If you don't believe anything we've said for the last 40 minutes about discipline, go find it. Go prove us wrong, right? Like if you can go prove us wrong, we'll be here to listen. But I promise you're going to find something in there that is going to confirm the fact that, God is good and he's looking out for us, and, you can be a part of this life too. So don't listen to anything we say. Take it and go prove us wrong.
That's good.
And see what you can find.
It's hilarious too, because this will be out after my message, but my message tonight is it's a message, but it's really more of a challenge to the younger generation. Because remember, whenever we were talking about y'all's, and kind of at the end, I was like, I believe you guys are the ones that are going to have to change culture. It's too late for me to try to change culture. I can impact you guys to some degree in Christ, so that you can have real impact, because culture's, it's gone. I mean, this election is about that right now. So, and I really, no one has to win to change it, because I think you guys have to change it. Maybe what this election's done is brought some awareness to some things that have gotten so far skewed and so far the wrong direction, that there's going to be enough people that are going to say that's enough's enough, But the thing I'm going to do tonight is challenge young adults. It's going to be, I found these scriptures, but go check them. Go check to make sure that they are in context to what I'm using them for, and if they're not, come correct me, because I'm available for that. I want to be better in what I'm doing. I want the red marks on my paper, because I know that's the only way I can grow and develop.
So you learn.
If you get perfect papers, there's a point where I think you'd probably just be like, I got it. And in that's dangerous. In Christianity, that's dangerous. So, man, I appreciate you guys. I love both of you. I'm thankful that you're in my life, and I'm thankful that you're in the AMP station. And I just pray that you guys get opportunity to minister to others. I hope that this was a challenge for you, but you learned a lot. And look forward to you're going to do a message here before too long, right? Maybe next semester or something. Yeah. So I'm ready for another great analogy. Like now it'd be on the pressure be on. Zorn jinxed me. So hey, we love you guys out there. Tune in and man, if you get a chance, come to AMP on Sunday nights at 7. We got athletic small group on Tuesday nights at 7 also. There's a Testimony Thursdays at 7 o'clock. And starting this week, which will actually be November 4th, so this will probably won't be out until next week, but starting November 4th, we're doing a Monday night small group that is going to be over Purpose-Driven Life, Rick Warren's book. It's a 40-day deal. It's awesome. We've done it a couple of times, but we're going to start a group on November 4th. So we'd love to have you there for that as well. So that'll be at 7 o'clock also. So we love you guys. Thanks for listening, and reach out if you got any questions or concerns or anything like that. We'd love to chat it up with you. So talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Trend or Truth podcast. This podcast is recorded out of the AMP station in Claremore, Oklahoma. AMP is a Christian ministry geared towards college students and young adults, with an emphasis on loving God, loving people, and making disciples. Consider becoming a subscriber so you don't miss a single episode. You can follow us on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms. Once again, thank you for joining us today, and we'll talk to you next time.